This is a very cool tennis shoe. Asics have decided to seriously color between the lines of a tennis and running shoe with the new Solution Speed 3, and that's pretty darn exciting. Hey everybody, it's Luca from Rackets Runners. Now that intro, I know a lot of you are going to be very skeptical, and I completely understand, but stick around for the whole review and you might change your mind maybe a little. Saying a tennis shoe is turning into a running shoe is definitely going to raise some eyebrows, but before we get into any of that, I just want to clarify. This is still very much a tennis shoe, and the running shoe stuff here has improved it more than anything, which is why I'm so excited about it. Now, of course, before we go on, remember that if you do want to check out the new Solution Speed FF3, you can visit us on our website, racketsandrunners.ca, and please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comment section what you want me to cover next. So obviously, you take one look at the new Solution Speeds, and you can tell that things have changed pretty drastically. First of all, there is significantly less rubber around the upper. The previous one was pretty much a 360 wrap, and on this one there is very little except in key wear zones. As you can imagine, that means that the already very light Solution Speed FF2, which weighed 329 grams in a size 9 US, went on a pretty substantial weight loss and weighs only 313 grams now in the same size. For reference, the New Balance 996, which is another lightweight shoe, weighs 371 grams in a size 9, and the Gel Resolution weighs 430, so as you can imagine, these shoes feel absolutely rapid, and that's why we're going to start this review with that uniquely weightless feel they provide. A lot of tennis players, including myself, have historically not really cared about a shoe's weight because the most important thing about a tennis shoe is lockdown and support, and we kind of associate a low weight with the opposite of that. Well, I'm not going to try to convince you to put more emphasis on weight, but I am going to tell you that playing with something this light makes for a wonderful experience in a lot of different situations. For one, as soon as you slide this shoe on, you get that initial shock factor similar to what us soccer players felt when we threw on the OG F50 Addy Zeros for the first time. Hopefully some of you understand that reference, but that was a truly transcendental experience for little 12-year-old me, and it was a similar, albeit less shocking experience with this shoe. The Solution Speed 3 is obviously not as light as the lightest soccer shoes, but it's a similar thing where it's like, wow, this is so much lighter than anything else I've tried. It really feels like you're wearing nothing on your feet. Now, initial shock impression is cool, but that doesn't really have much to do with playability. We are going to talk about playability now, and we're going to start with how that low weight affects the whole footwork experience. That sensation of weightlessness that a shoe this light provides makes you feel like you can move your feet more quickly and with more agility than with something heavier. The best way I can describe it is that it adds a flutteriness to your footwork. It starts playing with your mind and you actively try to move with more precise footwork because it feels so much more relatively easy to do so. There's definitely a bit of placebo in that, but placebo is more important than you think because it affects your mind, and at the end of the day, your mind controls what you do physically. I felt like I was turning into Federer with these, and after I put on a heavier shoe like the GP Turbo, I certainly missed that weightlessness and just felt like my footwork got more sluggish in general. That is a pretty darn sluggish shoe though, to be fair. So footwork with this is awesome, but as you can imagine, that low weight also has a positive effect on more aggressive movement, like big runs to the net and lateral cuts along the baseline. I'm not going to say this shoe makes you faster, but it does make it feel like those big runs take relatively less effort, which is awesome. I also just wanted to say that while that 16-gram decrease in weight is by no means groundbreaking coming from the previous one, you definitely feel it on foot. It just feels like these have stepped into an even lower tier of weight category. I initially had weight and movement in the same category, but I really wanted to focus on that low weight for a while because that's what makes these shoes so special. But there are a couple of other things designed in these shoes that add to that efficient movement around the court. You look at this outsole and it's significantly more rockered than your average tennis shoe. That rocker takes a second to get used to for sure, but once you do, it makes for a much more on your toes and faster sensation in general. There's a reason running shoes have rocker to them. That rocker complements the natural movement of your foot when running very well, and that helps to provide a little bit more spring on push-off points. Then you've got one of my favorite pieces of technology in any court shoe, and that's the Speed Truss plastic shank in the outsole. I love fancy tech when it works, and the ratio of torsional stability to energy return is absolutely fantastic here, and it just feels a little bit more springy than the twist truss shank that was on the previous Solution Speed. That's a tongue twister. Finally, you've got the outsole rubber material, and I've said this before with Asics shoes, but they are on their own pedestal in terms of grip to slip ratio. You won't slip if you don't want to, but entering and exiting the slide is perfectly consistent here, and you'll slide for longer and easier than you will on other shoes. We're going to move on from movement, speed, and weight here in a second, but I did just want to summarize really quickly. This shoe is unique. There is really nothing else out there that provides such a fast feel, efficient movement, and that sensation of being able to get to any ball at any time. It's extremely fun to play with, and it's very effective at what it does, but it's not without its flaws, so let's talk about support and stability. So all these movement things have been great, but at the end of the day, a low weight, a rockered outsole, all these things take away from a bit of support and stability. The rocker means you don't feel as grounded as you do on more classic stability shoes. But again, this shoe is made for somebody who wants to move around the court, not somebody who wants to stay in one position for as long as possible. So that rocker is definitely more of a personal preference thing. Those who like it will love it, and those who don't just won't go for this shoe. But there is one area where I think the Solution Speed 3 has taken a slight step backwards, and that's in lateral support. Like I mentioned earlier, Asics has removed a significant amount of rubber on this shoe's upper. Yes, that's part of what helps keep the weight down, but it also means there's noticeably more rollover and just generally less structure when you're pushing this shoe to the limits. You'll definitely feel it give a little bit when you're going for big lateral cuts, and while that did take me a second to get used to, especially because I was coming from the gel resolution, I didn't end up having a problem with that in the long run, but it won't be for everyone. It's never going to be one of those unmovable brick style tennis shoes, so the sooner you get over that, the sooner you'll be able to appreciate what that flexibility does give you. There is a very natural flex to this shoe, which means you have more court feel, and you have more of an ability to do micro adjustments to your movement with little adjustments in your feet. You can sort of flex your toes and your arch to use them as levers because they are more free to move within the shoe, and that's a sensation I came to absolutely love over the course of my playtest. That's not something you'll get with super solid stability shoes because the shoe resists so hard that you just don't have that micro adjustability. On the flip side of that though, too much rollover can quickly lead to a performance loss, and it can even become dangerous if you're not being careful during lateral movement. That's kind of the beauty of true stability shoes. You can kind of get away with sloppier technique when moving from side to side because they're going to be so stable no matter what, which is just not the case here. You have to be careful and extremely precise with your movement. You definitely can push these shoes, but don't get sloppy, and definitely don't bank on them supporting you if you do get lazy with your footwork. Just to make sure no one gets confused though, this is definitely not just a running shoe marketed as a tennis shoe. The outsole is way stiffer than on any running shoe, and while the upper is definitely soft, it's not completely without structure and support. It's a tennis shoe with running shoe characteristics, but still very much a tennis shoe. Fit is another area where things have changed quite a bit coming from the last Solution Speed, not necessarily in terms of shape and sizing, but just generally how the shoe wraps around the foot. Eliminating so much of the rubber has made the shoe significantly more comfortable and also much more adaptive than it was previously. I found the last Solution Speed to be a little bit too narrow, especially on the lateral side of my forefoot, and that rubber meant it wouldn't really stretch even after a long period of break-in. The last itself hasn't changed, so it's technically still narrow, but because the upper has gotten so much more flexible, I didn't even need a break-in period. It's definitely a little bit snug, but not in any sort of uncomfortable pressure type of way. They just provide a more seamless and natural wrap around the foot, and I don't think anyone will have a problem with this fit unless you have extremely wide feet. They also fit true to size and true to that classic Asics style where they're pretty long and pointy at the end. Moving on to the heel, it has a decent amount of plastic in there for structure and support, but it is by far Asics' least hardy heel when you're comparing it to the Court FF and gel resolution. It's super comfortable for sure, but I do wish it provided slightly better lockdown. There wasn't much heel slip, but I did need to route my laces through the back eyelet to get the heel lock that I wanted. So here's the thing. When you remove 85% of your shoe's rubber, you're going to make it less durable. It's as simple as that, and that's a sacrifice Asics knew they were making when they decided to do that. But while they removed most of the rubber, they left rubber in the key wear zones, which means that yes, it's less durable, but it's not 85% less durable. There is significant rubber in 3 locations, starting with the toe, which is obviously very important for toe dragging. Then there's a lot of rubber in the medial part of the toe box and the back medial laces, which are the key wear zones for the back foot when you're sliding. It's held up quite well. I'm starting to go through a bit of that rubber in the toe box after about a month of play, but I do wish that Asics would add a lace cover the way that Nike does with a lot of their shoes. There's nothing more annoying than having to swap your laces all the time. Now, the other downside with removing so much rubber from the upper is that it means the shoe's gonna soften up a little bit quicker. This doesn't necessarily make it less durable, it just means it's not going to hold its structure for so long, but I didn't find the drop off to be as drastic as it was on something like a Vapor 9.5 or a Vapor 10. Also, the outsole is super durable. It may be because the compound they use for the rubber here is a little bit harder, which is why they slide so well, and that also means it sheds less, which is why it's more durable. So yes, this is by far Asics' least durable shoe, but it is competing with behemoths like the Court FF and Gel Resolution, and I do think that slight loss in durability coming from the previous one is well worth that lighter and more flexible feel. Anyways, this is a fascinating shoe for me. I've always considered the Solution Speed a totally unique offering that people will either love or hate, and I think that's what it's going to continue to be. Asics could have gone two ways with this thing. One, try to make it a little bit more tennisy by bulking it up and taking away from its speed, or two, double down on that lightweight and natural feel that those who use it absolutely love it for. I think they made the right decision, especially considering they have those two other shoes that are some of the best for that classic tennis support and stability. I'm actually thinking of doing a full Asics lineup comparison. Could be a really fun video, so let me know in the comments if that's something that would interest you. For now though, that is going to be the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and remember that if you do want to try on the new Solution Speed FF3, you can come visit us in store, or you can check them out online at racketsandrunners.ca.